Now you'll notice my brown sugar is still like in the measuring cup. Oh! Hi, my name is Genevieve, and today I'm going to show you how to make Ube Crinkle cookies. Aren't they pretty? These are one of my favorite Ube snacks just because, one, they're really pretty to look at. Like, look at that contrast. Like, it makes me want to eat it. And of course, I love Ube, and the flavor of these cookies are out of this world. You have to try it. They are super easy to make. Probably the hardest part of this is just getting your hands on the ingredients, Ube Jam, Ube Extract. Other than that, simple. You have to try this. So let's get started. All right, let's do that again. These are all the ingredients that you'll need to make the Ube cookies. You will need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. For your elements, you need 1 teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Now, you'll notice like my brown sugar is still like in the measuring cup form, and that's because anytime you measure out brown sugar, you want to make sure you measure it in its packed form, not loose. You want to pack it in there, and that's how you properly measure brown sugar. 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 egg, 1/2 cup of Ube Jam, and 1 teaspoon of Ube Extract. I have some powdered sugar here, but that's for later when we're going to roll the cookies around before we bake it. Okay, now I want to talk about the Ube Jam. So the Ube Jam that I'm using in this recipe comes from a jar that looks like this. I have made 2 versions of these cookies. One version is using this kind of Ube Jam, and the other version is using homemade Ube Jam, or Ube Halaya. I just tried the version with the homemade Ube Jam just out of curiosity, and I found that the difference in taste is very slight. So if you have 2 versions, of course you can tell the difference. There is nothing like homemade. Homemade will always taste the best. However, that's only because you have tasted both versions. If you start off tasting the version using the Ube Jam coming from a jar, the taste is still phenomenal. It's amazing. I'm pretty good at detecting when pre-made ingredients are used in recipes, you know, straight from a jar, straight from a box. However, this is one of the only exceptions where I am okay with using the jam from a jar because 1, it tastes good. 2, it's efficient. I don't have to cook anything. It's easy. You just scoop it out, measure it, and boom, you're ready to go. Now let's get started. Mix your dry ingredients together. So I have my elements here, and I'm just going to mix it into my flour. Toss it around a little. Okay, butter in a bowl, and I'm going to cream this with the sugars, but I just kind of want to get this started and creamy first. Okay, now I'm going to add both of my sugars. Okay, it looks like this, and it took about 3 minutes for it to get this creamy. So now I'm going to add my egg. Ube Jam. Ube Extract. Scrape. Okay, now I am going to add my flour very gradually. So I'm just going to add a little bit. That's like 1/3 of the flour. Just going to mix it gently. Add another 1/3. And the rest. Okay, now it looks like this, so I'm just gonna make sure all that flour is worked in. Oh, this is really thick. It's cookie dough, so it's really thick. So it looks like this. I don't see any flour streaks, so this dough is done. You might have noticed that I didn't sift my flour, and that's because I'll normally only sift when I'm working with cake, and cakes and cookies have different textures, and cookies, I'm not looking for something fine, which is why you wanted to sift, so sifting isn't necessary here. This is supposed to cool until it gets hardened, and typically that takes around like 4 hours, but I don't have 4 hours, so this is the trick that I do, is that I like to smear the dough on as much surface area of the bowl as possible. It'll make it cool down even faster. Okay, see, so my bowl is like fully covered in dough. So now I'm gonna cover this with some plastic wrap and I'm gonna stick it in the freezer. And it shouldn't take 4 hours, it should take like 30 minutes. No more than an hour for sure. It has been 30 minutes and my dough is pretty solid. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to, this is why you wanted it hard, is because you're going to scoop it out into balls. And you want it to keep its shape. I'm using the ice cream scoop that doesn't have that quick release handle thing. And the scoop is a little bigger than the ice cream scoop that I normally use. So I'm really just scooping, filling it up halfway, and then like sweeping it out with my fingers like this. See? And then I'll show you what I do when I'm done forming all these out. Now that all my cookie dough is here, I like to put on some gloves because I'm going to roll these into balls and I don't want it sticking to my hand. If you don't have gloves, don't let this be a showstopper. Still make these cookies because they're just so awesome. Just use your hands. I just don't want to deal with it. Okay, so now with each one, I'm just going to roll it like this into balls. See? All my balls are formed. And now I'm going to take my powdered sugar and I'm going to roll each cookie dough around in them, like so. All my cookie dough is coated in powdered sugar, so now what I like to do now is I like to take them all for a second pass. Yes, I will coat them in another layer of powdered sugar. I want to make sure the powdered sugar is on there really good. If you just have a really thin powdered sugar on there, when it bakes, it's gonna turn kind of see-through and translucent, and you don't really get that white and purple contrast that I like in crinkle cookies. So when I'm rolling this, I'm really trying to pack that powdered sugar in as well as I can without smashing the cookie dough. I'm kind of like using the side of the bowl and like rolling it around like that. It comes out really pretty when you pack it in really good. Okay, they all have their second coating, so now I like to rearrange it nicely on this baking thing. Okay, ready to bake. There is one thing that I wanted to add, and that is that my Ube Crinkle cookies is the only thing that I will use the Ube Jam that comes in a jar for. For anything else Ube, I'll use Ube Extract, Ube Powder, I'll use a homemade Ube Jam. So when this recipe calls for a half cup of Ube Jam, the rest of the Ube Jam will just sit in a jar in my refrigerator until the next time I'm ready to make Ube Crinkle cookies. And to me, that's a waste. So I like to maximize my time. And you can actually make these cookies ahead of time. You could make the dough and put it in the freezer. And you know how you could buy pre-made cookie dough from the grocery store? You take it home, you cut it up. I don't have any more cookie dough left. I baked all the cookies. They're actually back there. So I'm going to demonstrate for you what I would do. So you would take all of that dough it would still be good not to completely freeze it or chill it, but cool it down a little so that it's like workable, so that it's moldable. And then, okay, don't laugh, but this is like a broken piece of foam that I'm going to use to demonstrate. So, but basically you take that dough and you like roll it into a log that looks like this. And when you have your nice log of ube cookie dough, then you'll take a piece of plastic wrap and you put your log in the middle, and then you, okay, then you're going to grab onto the sides and you're going to roll it so it seals it in. And then you're going to cover this in foil, again, another layer of foil, and that's so that it doesn't pick up any flavors in your freezer. But then you're going to store it into the freezer, and when you want ube cookies, you just pull this out, you take a knife, and then you cut it into the pieces similar to the pieces in the grocery store. You know how some of them are already scored, so you just cut them, and then you take your cookie piece, roll into a ball, put it in your powdered sugar, put it on a baking pan, and then you bake it. Okay, my cookies are done baking, and it took them 13 minutes to finish. And I'm going to show you how I knew they were done. So when you look at a cookie or you press the side of a cookie, if it like keeps its form when you press it, it's done. It's not raw. And also like the middle was a little sunken, so that's another way, is just I looked at it, and when none of the tops were sunken or looked wet in the middle. And you also want to make sure you don't over bake the cookies, so don't leave them in this pan to cool. So I'm going to take them out and I'll just let them cool here. My cookies are fully cooled, so guess what time it is? Okay, so first let me show you the opening, I guess. Okay, so here is my very pretty purple crinkle cookie. Yay! And that is what the inside looks like. Taste it. Taste it through the camera. Taste it through the screen. Taste it through the phone. Cheers! Mmm. Mmm. Yum. I love ube. I already knew I was going to love this, even before I bit into it. It's so good. I could eat this whole thing to myself. It's such a flavorful cookie. If you like ube, you would love this cookie. I wish you could try, but there's only one way to find out, right? Well, two, or actually three. One, you can make them yourself. You can go out and buy them from somebody else who made them, or you can have somebody else make it for you. That was good. That made my day. I'm going to be happy the rest of the day just because of that. If you like this recipe and this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on all the other recipes that I'm going to share with you. Bye. Thanks for watching.